Okay, so we should have allowed enough time now for those inner panels to dry. So I'm now going to take my piece and I'm dry trialing it with the back and the sides there. And it may look off square to start with, but you just need to maneuver it in and then bring in your sides, marry them up with the front of the desk, and you'll see that everything lines up quite well. So give it a dry trial first, put everything in place and make sure you're happy with it, and then we can go ahead and glue. So looking at where things are going to stick, the edges of the side pieces are going to stick down the inside of the back of the front of the desk. That's a mouthful. And also the edges of the inner pieces are going to stick in the middle of the back piece. So where we will apply our glue to make sure that things will stick will be to the edges of the sides and to the edges of that back piece, and that will ensure that the glue hits where it is supposed to, if that makes sense. So we're just going to give a really light layer of glue to those edges, and once we've done that, we'll flip that front piece around and we'll line it up and square it in. Okay, so we've got that glue on. I'm now flipping that over, and take your time doing this. So lining that left edge up first. I am then pulling the sides in together to line the right edge up, and then I will press down to adhere the back part. While I'm doing this, I am looking at the lines of my cutting mat. Now you can see it's not exactly lined up here, but I've got a general idea about things sitting square. And I'm also looking around from different angles to make sure that there's nothing sticking out that shouldn't be, and making sure that I use my toothpick to run down the edges and get rid of all that excess glue. So you can really see that the desk is starting to come together now, and we might just have to be a bit gentle with this until it takes, just because we want it to stay square in order for the other pieces to adhere square as well. If this is off, it's going to knock off everything else, all the other alignment of the other parts that will be on the desk. So just take your time with this and try and get it as square as possible. Okay, so the desk has been sitting for a few minutes. I know yours hasn't, but that's okay as long as it's adhered. So I've just flipped it over and we're looking at our base pieces now. So I have two of these, and essentially I'm going to do what I've done with all the other pieces, and that is to dry trial it first, and then once I'm happy that I roughly know where that's going to go, then I'm going to glue the edges of my desk, and I'm going to lower that onto that platform. Now when I do that, I'll use the other platform just to hold the other side of the desk up until such time as it's dry enough to then take it out and glue that side. So it's dry trialing at the moment, and when I'm happy I will add my adhesive and go from there. So while you're looking at this, try and make sure that the inner edge of the platform doesn't come out across the middle of the desk. try and make sure that you have enough room around the outside for the tears to show. So it should line up pretty well where you have roughly a 0.5 mil to 1 mil showing. You can take all the time you need with this because it can be a bit fiddly, and you do want to get it straight, because if you paste it on crooked it will be noticeable. So do take your time to centre them up nicely and get it right. You can see here I'm just gluing the edges. I'm not applying any glue to the base platform at all. And I'm doing this very slowly, as you can see, to line everything up and make sure that things are square, and manoeuvring it a little if I need to. You can see the back slightly off there, so I'm just adjusting that, and then once I'm happy I'll start clearing that off. And then when I'm happy that that's adhered, I can flip the desk over, and then it will be time to put the next platform on. So I will add a bit of glue to the bottom edges of the other side, and once I have enough of that I'll flip it over, and I'll do the exact same thing as I did with the other side. So taking time, lining it up, making sure that it's square and that I'm happy with where it's positioned, and then we'll leave that to dry. And just applying a little bit of pressure to the top, just to press down, make sure everything is adhered together. While I'm doing this, I'm looking around the desk. You can't tell because you can't see my head obviously, but I'm looking around, craning around and making sure that things are square, nothing looks weird, and I'm doing that as I add some pressure to the desk and just go through that final setting process. And of course, when I'm happy with that, I'll take my toothpick and clear out any excess, as we usually do. So I'm really, really happy with how this piece is turning out. It's coming together really nicely, and I hope yours is as well. Okay, so it's now time to look at our back panel pieces, and now that I have the two base pieces stuck to the bottom, it's going to be a lot easier for me now to put these back pieces on, because I've got something to centre them against, if that makes sense. So you'll see me here dry trialling, and the first piece that I start with is the middle between the two bottom platforms. And then once I've got that centred, I'm sticking in one of my side pieces and I'm centering that against the length of the bottom platform. And I'll do the same with the other side as well. And this will give me even spacing between all of the pieces and make them look aligned. So we use the other parts of the desk to determine how far apart they will be situated. So we're going to go ahead and glue those back panels now. So I'll take my first one and I'll add a light layer of glue to the back, and then, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to place that in the centre of the desk first, and I will place it in the centre of that gap between the legs, and that way I know it's right in the middle, and that's going to be my starting point. Now that that's in place, adding a light layer of glue to my second back panel, and I am going to align that with the left side platform, and like I mentioned earlier, I'll centre that in line with the length of that platform. or should I say the width? No, it's the length. So I'll centre that in line with the length, and you'll see that this automatically evenly spaces from the centre, and it will evenly space from the other side as well. And then we will take our third one, give a light layer of glue to the back of that, and then we'll centre that in place on the right hand side, and again centred in via the length of that bottom platform. And in the end, this will give us nice even spacing, and it's really quite decorative on the back of the desk. I think out of the whole desk, this is my favourite part, if I'm honest. I like how this has turned out, and it's a very classic look. And how exciting, we are on the home straight. We have the top of the desk to go, and then it's done. So here I'm giving it just dry trialing and seeing what it will look like, and then I tip it upside down, and same thing again, I'm going to line it up based on those bottom tiers, and I want to make sure that everything is nicely spaced and centered, so that when it's dry, no matter which way you tilt this desk or look at it, everything should look really nice and square. So now when I am gluing all those top edges, and I'm not gluing the top underpiece because obviously that doesn't line up with the very top. So it's only the top edges of the desk that I am adding my glue to, and I'm just trying to do a light layer, but of course we're gluing to the edge of cardstock, so that's not always easy. And then once I have what I feel is good coverage, again very slowly I'm lowering this onto the desktop, and I'm making sure that the front tiers are showing, that the side tiers are showing, and the back, and also that everything is lovely and centered. So if you haven't picked that up already, I'm a bit of a fiend for having things centered and sitting nicely. So I'll always take the extra time to make sure that that's done, because I think that adds a good finish to the piece. And then once you're satisfied with it, you can leave it to sit for a short while, and then you can flip it over, and congratulations, you've just completed your desk. So I think you'll agree with me that that was pretty easy. And considering that we just essentially just glued a few simple layers of board together, we've come up with an amazing little desk, and it wasn't really that hard. So I hope that you'll take this forward and use some of these ideas in your future projects. So I wanted to talk to you about where to go from here. Obviously we're not going to paint this piece together, and we're not going to add any hardware, but some of the things that I would consider using with this piece as far as hardware goes, I have a 3D pen, and I do have some other videos on my YouTube channel which show you how I make little handles for my pieces. So I don't know if any of you have a 3D pen, but if you do, that's an idea. You can use beads as your handles and knobs. You can use 18 gauge wire. You can also cut some handles out of cardstock and pop them on and just paint them a different colour. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is an undercoat or a sealant before you paint. So if you paint directly onto this board, you'll find that your paint soaks in. You'll get a streaky paint which doesn't have a full colour, and you won't have very good coverage, and you'll find that it will take you many layers to get the kind of coat that you want. So I do suggest using something like gesso. This is gesso that I'm holding in my hand at the moment. So gesso is for porous surfaces such as wood, cardstock, board, artboard, canvas, that sort of thing. you can use gesso, and it will provide like a grip on your cardstock, so something for the paint to hold on to, and it will also seal and protect the piece so that your paint will have a really good finish and you'll use far less coats. So I do suggest that to start with. Now you could paint this piece any colour you want. In fact, if you got creative, particularly if you decided to cut this piece on a cutting machine, you could use various fabrics like leather or vinyl to create different textures on the desk, such as the leather desktop that I mentioned earlier. Or just simple painting, you may decide to use different tones and different shades to bring out the engraving. You will find though that painting will add another dimension to the piece and will make it look quite realistic. And the other thing I thought about this piece is because it's white underneath, you could paint it a darker colour and then sand it back, and it would make a really, really cool shabby chic piece if you wanted to. So those are some ideas for your finishing, and also you might want to add a nice glossy varnish when you're done. So the next thing I want to request from you, if you're ready, is to take a photo of your finished piece after you finish decorating, or even at this point. And you could either post that to the Miniature Collectors of Australia page, or you could drop it over to me at Miniature Fairy Tales. We'd love to see what you've done today. I hope you've had a great time on this tutorial. I've certainly enjoyed bringing it to you, and I look forward to catching up next time. Do pop along to the rest of the extravaganza and find out what our amazing traders are doing, and have a look at those wonderful displays. Bye guys, enjoy the rest of your day.